best car, SUV, or truck, guess what? You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.
And I'm pleased to announce that we have, as always, the owner of that fine establishment with us today, who is ready, willing, and more than able to take any phone inquiries from you if you would like to get the price of a car or a truck or an SUV that you're thinking of buying or selling or trading in. You would do this. You would dial 478-3116. 478-3116. That connects you to us. I connect you with Ivan Streckel, who is the owner of Frontier Motors located at 230 Beverly Parkway. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Don. Thanks for the introduction. This is once again a double format. We are live on 1370 Talk Radio, and we're also videotaping this for our Blab TV customers. So if you're watching this on TV right now, this probably isn't a live show. So you can call the number on the bottom of your screen, which is the Frontier Motors phone number. And again, if you are looking to call live to 1370 AM radio, it's 478-3116. And what we can do is help you out with the value of your car. I have the Black Wholesale Guidebooks standing by. These are the books that are somewhat what we call the secret books in the used car industry and tells us what's going on through the auction. We also have with us the NADA guides. Now, the reason we use these NADA guides instead of the Kelley Blue Book or the Edmunds, because the NADA guides are the ones that are banks and insurance companies and credit unions use. So this is kind of an important book as far as how much you can borrow on a particular car. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what that particular car is worth, and that's why you contact Frontier Motors, whether it be through 1370 radio like right now or watch the Blab show, but or call us at 436-8080. That's the phone number of Frontier Motors. And what we can do is what I call give you the real value. Now, what I mean by that, the real value not being so much a book value as far as reality, what's going on in the industry right now. And all we do at Frontier Motors from the time we come in the morning till the time we leave at 6 o'clock at night is we appraise cars for customers. We appraise cars for ourselves and our customers, and we help people make sure they get the right value for their car, especially if you've decided to buy a brand new car. Now, if you're going to buy a brand new car, one of the things that we can help you with is we have the new car cost guides at the dealership, and these cost guides are invoice guides that gives us the ability to tell you what a particular dealership paid for a particular car. When we look at Consumers Reports, they actually, on the back of Consumers Reports, they actually sell an invoice to customers, and they charge $14 per invoice. Well, Frontier Motors, we can give you an invoice at no charge. Now, the reason the invoice might be helpful to you is if you know what a dealer paid for a particular car, it will help you structure your deal so you're not spending hours making a ridiculous offer that's never going to happen. So if a dealer paid $20,000, I would tell you give them a little bit of profit and then get a fair value for your trade-in. Now, how do you know what that fair value is? Well, you stop in at Frontier Motors, you bring the car in, or you call Frontier Motors, give us the ID number of that car, and within a couple of minutes, we can tell you what we would either write you a check for, or at least what we know that they should be appraising that car for after you get the discount, after you get the rebate and all incentives, and we want to make sure you get a fair value. And I've helped hundreds of customers throughout the years make sure they don't get taken advantage of by dealerships that might be underappraising your car. Now, when they underappraise the car, it might necessarily not mean that they're trying to rip you off, even though sometimes that's what you think. If I tell you your car's worth $20,000 and they're appraising it for $16,000, you might get the idea, well, hey, they're trying to steal my trade-in. That might not necessarily be true. There's a lot of different reasons why a dealer might devalue your vehicle, and it might not because they're ripping you off. But we'll get into that in a minute right after we take this call. Don, we have a call?
We do. This is Aaron on the phone with us. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for calling the Frontier Motor Show. How can we help you?
Good morning, Ivan. Very satisfied with the vehicles we've got from you, and
Great.
I'm coming to you for some some advice.
Okay.
We purchased a 2009 Chevy Aveo from you about 3 years ago, and it's time for me to get rid of it, and I would like to sell it. Was wondering what I could get for that vehicle based on what I owe the bank.
Okay.
You know.
Well, don't tell me what you owe the bank, because let's not use that as a deterrent as far as what I'll tell you.
Yes, sir.
Is it a hatchback or a four-door sedan?
4-door sedan with a 1.6 liter automatic.
Got it. Okay. And it's an LS model, just the base LS model.
Yes, sir. OnStar, power,
Okay.
Windows, power, power steering.
Well, that actually might be an LT. Let's use an LT. There's not that much of a difference. And how many, Aaron, how many miles do you have on it?
We're at 91,000.
Okay. Let's type it in here and we'll give you an idea.
And by the way, if you would like to make a phone call and talk with Ivan Streckel, you would dial 478-3116 as we continue with this edition of Talk at 10 here on News Talk 1370 WCOA. He is ready, willing, and certainly more than able to take any inquiries from you concerning the price of a car, truck, or SUV that, as you have heard, you are thinking of buying or selling or trading in.
And Aaron, I'm assuming it has cruise control, power windows, and power door locks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It comes up to a retail of $5,450. That's with 91. I'm going to read it back to you. I'm using an LT model because it's got power windows, door locks, and tilt and cruise control. And an LS model would be just a basic model with crank windows. It's got 91,000 miles on it. It's an 09 model. So it has a retail of $5,450 and it has a loan value, which is supposed to be wholesale, of around $3,200. So I would say that this car is going to bring full retail, Aaron. If you put it on Craigslist, if you bring it to the dealership and trade it in, you're probably going to get, I would think, somewhere around $4,000 on a trade-in. And I think if you retailed it, you're going to get somewhere around $5,500 for it. Now,
Okay,
the next
so
question
better-
is, what do you owe on it?
So better to go ahead and just get out from underneath it and then
Ask him.
go that way. That sounds great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for calling the show. And one of the things I want to mention real quick also, folks, is that the value of the vehicle has nothing to do with the payoff. And sometimes I have customers say, well, I'm not telling you how much I owe on the car, thinking that it's going to, if they owe $20, like I'm only going to give them $20. And if they owe $20,000, like it would be worth $20,000. Obviously, reality is that if you owe a certain dollar amount, you're going to need to pay it off. And if I appraise a car for $10,000 and you owe $12,000, you're going to have to come up with $2,000. But whether I know what you owe or not is going to be immaterial. It really doesn't matter. And I think that's a fallacy that people think that, well, I'm not going to tell them how much I owe because they're going to only give me that much. Let's say you only owed $5,000 on a $10,000 car. Would you take $5,000 for it? Of course you wouldn't, because it really has nothing to do with it. And yet also sometimes it's the opposite, that if it's a $20,000 car and you owe $25,000 on it, doesn't mean I'm going to give you more money because you happen to owe more money on that. And that's one of the things that's very important, folks, that if you are financing 100% of the price of the car. And I had this happen a lot of times where a customer comes in and it's a $20,000 car. And of course, one of the questions that we have, one of the questions the customers always have is how much are the payments going to be? And the first question that we ask them, of course, other than if they have good credit or not, is how much are you putting down? And the first thing I always get from customers, I'm not putting nothing down. I don't want to put nothing down. Now, folks, that's possible if you have good credit that you can buy a car with no money down. We've gotten ourselves into a real big mess because of that. Because what happens is that people finance the whole price of the car. They finance the taxes, the title, the tag fee, the dock fee, and they're buying a $20,000 car. Immediately, they're financing $23,000 on that car. So as they're driving off the lot, they're immediately upside down. In other words, they owe more on the car than it's worth because they're financing the tax and everything. So I always try to urge my customers to at least save the money for the fees. That way, you're still financing 100% of the car, but at least you'll be in a better situation than you would be if you financed everything. And folks, if you're going to finance it, I urge you to buy GAP insurance. GAP insurance is probably the most inexpensive form of insurance that you can buy that's going to protect you in case the car gets totaled. Let's say you owe $25,000 on that car and you drive off the lot, somebody runs a red light, and you get creamed, and the book value of that car is $20,000. Well, guess what? The insurance company only has to pay you the book value of the car. They don't have anything to do with the payoff. Obviously, if it was paid for, you still get $20,000 for it. So the payoff has nothing to do with it. So buy GAP insurance to protect yourself if you're one of those type of people that are financing 100%, especially important if you buy a brand new car. So that's one of the things that we can help you with. Now, there's a lot of things we do at Frontier Motors, and I got off the subject a little bit when Aaron called about the value of his Aveo, but we were talking about why would a used car or a new car dealer devalue your car. One reason they would devalue your car is, number one, what if they have a bad experience with the type of car that you have? And let's use an example Let's say that you have a F-350 pickup truck diesel dually, and you go to Lexus Mobile and you're looking at an RX 350 Lexus, and they're going to appraise your pickup truck. How excited is that used car manager about having a dually diesel on his Lexus lot? Not very excited. Guess what happens? You're going to end up getting a low appraisal. If he doesn't want your vehicle, he's going to appraise it low enough that he can take it to the auction and not lose any money on it. What they don't tell you, though, is the auction charges a fee. There's shipping fee involved. If he has a broker he's using, there's a broker fee involved. So he's got to compensate for that by appraising your vehicle less. Now, another reason you might get a low appraisal, let's use the Lexus dealership again. The reason I like to pick on them is, number one, we sell a lot of Lexus products, but number two, they're not in Pensacola, so they don't get as mad as me as some local dealers if I were to use them. Let's say that you've got a 2013 ES350 you're trading at the Lexus dealership. The first thing you would think of, well, there's nobody going to give me more money on a used Lexus than a Lexus dealership. Well, that's not necessarily true. What if they have 10 2013 ES350s in stock? And what if 5 of those are aged inventory on their lot? How excited is that used car appraiser to have another one in stock? Not very excited. Another reason you get a low appraisal. Another reason you might get a low appraisal, let's say you're buying an inexpensive car and you're trading an expensive car. What if the dealer you're doing business with can't afford your trade-in? This happens a lot of times. I had a customer the other day trading a $50,000 Corvette in. Fortunately, at Frontier Motors, we're in a financial position that we can take that car and trade, and we have a market for that car right on our lot. But let's say you're trading with a dealership that has $1 million in used car inventory, and he's already at $1.2 million. In other words, the used car manager is over budget. And now you're coming with a $50,000 trade-in. Guess what he has to do? He can't use it for his lot. He doesn't have the money. So he calls a broker, and I'm not saying anything bad about brokers. I use brokers at times. But he calls a broker, and the broker takes a cut of the action. In other words, what he does is he appraises that car low enough so he can make a profit on it and pay the auction fees and pay the shipping to get it to the auction. Therefore, you get a low appraisal. Now, how do you stop that from happening? You stop at Frontier Motors and you get an appraisal. You get a free appraisal. And that appraisal would be appraisal, not just a fictitious value to kink the deal of the car you're buying, because we want that trade-in. We want that car. I had an example is that this is a list of cars that I bought just in the last 3 days, last week, 3 days of buying cars. That was 31 cars. Well, the problem that we have is that we're selling between 250 and last month we sold almost 300 cars, which means I've got to buy about 70 to 80 cars a week. Well, in those 3 days, I only hit 31, which means that I need extra cars. And that's why we do this appraisal service, because a lot of times I end up with the car. Very interesting Consumers Reports. I got my new one the other day. It is the June 16 edition. And on page 58, they have a thing on used cars on here. And it says right here, the median price paid for a recent model used car, one built since 2011, was $18,000 when purchased from a used car dealer and $21,000 when purchased from a franchise dealer. Now, isn't that interesting? This is a nationwide survey of 1,006 people. Don't ask me why it wasn't 1,010. It was 1,006 people that they surveyed. And they said that people, when they bought a used car, got a $3,000 better deal when they bought it from an independent dealer than a franchise dealership. Now, that's the first time I've ever seen this put in writing. Again, this is the June edition. For you new car dealers out there that might get mad at me that I'm using this, it's the June edition on page 58. So you know I'm not just making this up. That they're telling you that if you're going to buy a used car, that you should buy it from an independent instead of a franchise. Now, why would you do that? Why would you buy it from an independent? Why is there a $3,000 difference? Well, one reason, and Frontier Motors is a prime example, is the overhead. We don't have a multi-million-dollar mausoleum. Now, I wanted one. When we moved to Pensacola 21 years ago, we went to Car City, and there's one dealership that was for sale in Car City. It was a mausoleum back then. Even back then, it was $1 million, and it needed almost $750,000 in renovation to get it up to par. That's how vacant that lot was. It was sitting for a decade or so without a dealership in there before a franchise dealership finally bought it. And I'm looking at that thinking, I'm going to have almost $2 million invested in that building. I found a building on Beverly Parkway, 2 blocks outside of Car City for $105,000. Put about $20,000 into paint and repairs and tearing the barbed wire fence down. And we bought some property since then, small lots, 5 or 6 additions. But the amount of money that we have vested in our facility is minuscule compared to the amount of money that these dealerships are made to purchase when they get a franchise. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the dealership. I remember that my sister-in-law runs a Chevrolet dealership. She's the controller for a Chevrolet dealership in Wisconsin. Actually, it's the largest Chevrolet dealership in Wisconsin, called Holst Chevrolet out of Milwaukee. They were forced to remodel their showroom based on Chevrolet standards. They didn't have a choice. The building was dated, even though it was clean. It was nice. There was no problems with it. But they were forced to build a new building. They were forced to revamp their service department, their waiting room, and their parts department. And that's what a franchisee can do to a franchise. They can make you spend money. I remember she said they had to tear out all their tile, and they by themselves had put brand new tile in their facility, but was the wrong color tile, even though it was brand new. It didn't match the motif of the Chevrolet dealership, so they had to tear it out and for $1,000 put brand new ones in. Now, what do you think that does to the overhead? Well, I guess Consumer Reports put in writing. It makes a difference in the overhead that you can get a better deal buying it from an independent, not necessarily Frontier Motors, just an independent dealership. Last time I checked, there was 80-some independent dealerships in Pensacola and Escambia County, Escambia and Santa Rosa County. And there was 17, I think it was 17 or 18 new car dealers. Lots of dealers to choose from, but you still get a better deal from independent. Now, the other thing that Consumer Reports said in last April's edition, and this is the first time I've seen this in writing, they said that on page 21, that the average new car sold last year in 2015 was $34,000. That's the transaction price, not the list price. That was after rebates and incentives. It might have been a $38,000 car on the average that was being sold for $34,000. The first year depreciation was 27% on the average, which equates to a $9,180 loss the first year loan. After 2 years, you lose $12,000. After 4 years, on that $34,000 car, lost 56% of its value down to $19,000. And that's why Consumers Report says that the best car to buy is a used car. And one of the things they talk about is that an example would be, instead of buying a brand new Civic, why not buy a gently used Honda Accord with more luxurious trim package, a quieter interior, and a smoother ride for the same price? So in other words, you could buy a brand new 2016 Civic, or you could get a 15 Accord, which might not be affordable brand new because it's about $7,000 more than a Civic, but buy a 15 model with maybe 10,000 miles on it for the same price as a brand new Civic. So you're getting a bigger car that drives much better and is much quieter and is more luxurious and has a bigger trunk and bigger seat and bigger back leg room. I'm floored by that, because I'm thinking that if a car's got a $87,000 base price, wouldn't everything be standard? You know, they even charge you for some colors on this car. The white was an extra option. The floor mats were an option. Can you imagine that floor mats are an option
on an $87,000 automobile?
It's almost a joke, Don. I was floored. I feel kind of sorry for the BMW dealership that has to sell these cars brand new, and I'm looking for the 650. But even here's an X6, for example, which is the BMW, which is a crossover car. For example, they have a cold weather package. This X6 has got a base price of $72,000. Cold weather package, which is heated seats and a heated steering wheel, is a $550 option. If you want the Harman Kardon sound system, it's $4,600. $4,600 more over the base price of $70,000. I can go on and on. There's pages of equipment that you can put on here. It just goes on. A premium package, $2,500. Stop and go active driving assist, $3,100. Heads-up display, $1,400. It goes on and on and on. And Consumers Report says that what you want to do is buy a loaded-up car used, because the dealers like ourselves that are buying these cars, we're not paying extra for all that equipment. The NADA might add for navigation, which, by the way, was standard, so there's no ad for navigation, and a sunroof and real leather interior. Believe it or not, you can get a BMW with what they call pleather, which is basically a plastic vinyl interior, and they charge extra for real leather. So the leather is an upgrade on a BMW. That's another joke, but that's just an opinion. That's how they get you. It's not, and BMW is not the only one that does that. Volkswagen does it on some of their cars. Mercedes does it on some of their cars. So it's very interesting that you can get a fake leather if you're not careful. I know because I bought one by mistake already, thinking it was leather because it looked like leather, and it was not leather interior. That was an upgrade. But Consumers Report says that buy a loaded up car at the dealer, and I try to buy as loaded up of a car as possible because I don't pay extra for all that little stuff. There's not even ads in the NADA guidebook when we add for it. There might be an ad if it's a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. Like I said, they might add for a sunroof, but there's no ad for heads-up display. There's no ad for soft closed doors. There's no ad for the electric trunk that goes up and down. So these are things that I can talk to you about when you stop in at Frontier Motors to get advice. So one of the things that we do, folks, if you're going to buy a used car somewhere, I'm not sure, everybody's heard of Carfax, but I'm not sure if you know this or not, but a Carfax costs almost $45. Last time I checked, it was like $40-some plus the taxes. And you can pay like $60 and run a 2-month unlimited supply. But why not just call Frontier Motors with the ID number, and I'll run that Carfax at no charge. We also use AutoCheck, which is the second largest provider of history reports in the nation. So we use Carfax and AutoCheck. And when I plug that ID number into the system, it also pops up a price. It tells me what every vehicle like that is selling for within a 150-mile radius. So I can kind of look at that and say, well, man, if the low is like $10,000, the high is $13,000. You want to stick somewhere in the middle, like around $11,500. So you make sure you don't pay $11,500, more than $11,500. And the vehicle's got a clean history report, but it does happen to have a minor Carfax accident 5 years ago, which wouldn't hurt the value. And these are things that I can tell you that the history report tells you. It also tells you how many titles were issued. It tells you if it's been into a dealership for service, if it tells you if it's a branded title, which would be flood damage and things like that. These are all things that I can help you with at no charge. Now, the reason we do that is because if you're looking for a particular car, I can tell you if it's a good price or not. And where we come in is if I tell you don't pay any more than $15,000 for a particular car, and the dealer or private individual is asking $17,500 for it, well, you can use our information to go back to that dealer or private individual and say, hey, Frontier Motors can get me a car just like this for $15,000. That's going to help you get a better deal. So either they bring the price down to $15,000, or you come back over to Frontier Motors with having 388 cars in inventory this morning. We might have that exact car right sitting on our lot at $15,000. I never try to kink another dealership's deal or your deal, for example. If it's a good deal, I'll tell you right off the bat, hey, that's a good price. It's got a clean history report. Make sure you get inspected before you buy it, but if you can get it for $15,000, that's a good price. Now, what if you have a trade-in and the dealer doesn't want your trade? Or what if it's a private individual? You're looking at Craigslist or eBay or Cars.com or AutoTrader. If it's a private individual that's selling their car, they're not going to want your trade-in. So that's another reason you come or stop at Frontier Motor or call us with the information, just like Aaron did with his Aveo. You notice I gave him a price on his Aveo within a matter of minutes by just a description. And all I tell him is this is what the car should be worth. This is what the wholesale value is. And it'd be just less any reconditioning. So if the customer comes in and I tell them, hey, your car's worth $7,500, well, if it needs a set of tires, we would just deduct whatever tires cost. If it needs a paint job, just deduct whatever the paint job is. If the headliner's sagging, you put a new headliner for $200. But these are things that we help people with in our area, in our community, just to make sure they don't get ripped off by any dealership. And I'm not saying that dealerships are there to rip you off, but some of them are. There's a lot of good dealerships in Pensacola. The problem is there's also some bad ones, and you never know which one's which. So what you do is you stop in Frontier Motors and you get the free advice. And we don't make you feel obligated that you should buy a car from us. We just want to make sure you get a good deal because we know that that's not the last car you're ever going to buy. If we tell you, hey, that car that your neighbor's selling for $15,000 is a good deal, go ahead and buy it. Now, why would we tell you to do that? Because we know you're going to buy another one another 4 or 5 years later. And guess where you're going to go? Hopefully not to the neighbor. You go back to Frontier Motors because we helped you get the deal. I have so many customers that come in that tell you, hey, I heard the COA radio show, or I saw you on Blab TV. And you helped me get a deal. And now I'm ready for my next car. Or they send me their friends, relatives, their neighbors, people they work with, that ask them, where should I buy a used car? And they say, go to Frontier Motors. That guy's they're really honest. They helped me get a deal. Plus, with almost 400 cars in inventory, we pretty much have something for everybody. And if you'll notice that if you're watching this on TV, we don't have pictures of the cars. I've had a couple of complaints about that throughout the last 15 years since we've been doing this format, because when you have other dealers on Blab, they advertise individual cars. Well, number one, with having almost 400 cars, that would be impossible. But number two, this show is not about an individual car. It's not about a sale. It's not about you got to come in at the end of the month. I kind of make jokes about sales in the car industry. There's no such thing as far as I'm concerned. We're a dealership that's going to give you a fair deal every day of the week. I don't care if it's the last day of the month. I don't care if it's the first day of the month. We're going to make money when we sell you a car, but we're not going to rip you off. And that's what most people are worried about. They just don't want to get taken advantage of. They just don't want to pay too much. Well, how do you trust me by doing that? I've got that program called Price Driver that tells me what everybody else is selling that same car for. Well, if I can share that information with you, wouldn't that make you feel better that if I'm telling you the car that I have is $15,000 and everybody else is asking $16,000, that I might be able to get your business based on the fact that I'm selling it for less? Or if I don't have the cheapest price, if there's a couple of them out there that are $14,000, what if the mileage that I have is less? What if I got 10,000 less miles on my car? Or what if I've got more equipment on the car? What if mine's an automatic instead of a stick? Or I've got real leather instead of fake leather? Or I've got a sunroof and the other one doesn't? Or what if mine's just in better condition? It's not always about the price. Most of it is about the condition. Most people would rather pay a little bit more and get a car that hasn't been smoked in, that hasn't been in an accident, that's now all nicked up and scratched up. And that's what we deal with in Frontier Motors. And if you've never stopped at Frontier Motors, you'll be pleasantly surprised that you can come in and you're not going to be bothered, you're not going to be hassled. We're not going to trick you into buying a car when you're not ready. We want to sell you a car when you want to buy one. I sometimes joke a little bit about our salespeople because I make sure that they don't pressure you into buying a car. So we're not selling you a car. The difference is you're buying one from us. And you do that when you're ready. What we do is we give you the information, we put it in writing, we give you an out-the-door price. And if you ever go to a dealership that doesn't give you an out-the-door price in writing with everything included, I tell you to walk away. If you ever go to a dealership that sells their cars as used, when we give you a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty on any car that's a 2008 or newer with less than 100,000 miles, you'll get an additional 100,000-mile drivetrain warranty on that. And even if the car's older than that, you'll get at least a 3-month warranty. Come see us for free advice. That's Frontier Motors, 230 Beverly Parkway. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Have a great day. Auf Wiedersehen.
Down the street, got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.